Hello everybody, in today's exciting episode of JayEmm on Cars, we are going to be talking about my very recent, rather controversial, viral video about the problems of buying a brand new McLaren. If you haven't watched that video, then I suggest that you do so now, because if you haven't seen it, and quite a few things in this video probably won't make any sense. In short, I'm going to be giving you some very important updates on John 7:20, answering some of the key questions that arose as a result of that video, and also my opinion on how these things can be changed and made better for people in the future. But first, I want to start with a reading, if I might. Our mission is not only to build the best sports cars in the world, but also to offer the best ownership experience. You know who said that? Mike Flewitt, the current CEO of McLaren, and that leads me on to my first point. A lot of people wondered why it was that I made the previous video. Was I just on some mission to bash McLaren? Well, no. I made 4 reviews of McLarens the same week that I released that video, with the intent of proving the fact that I can say plenty of nice things about McLaren and their cars. A lot of people seem to think that I love bashing British stuff just because I'm British, and I must admit, it is a bit of a national pastime, sort of degrading our own stuff. But the real reason is actually a little simpler, and I would love people to give me their opinion on this. I think if there is a business that you love, regardless of whether it's, from your own country or not, the best thing you can do as a customer of that business to help them survive and improve is to not accept mediocrity. Now, the British are terrible for this. I'm sure we've all been out to a restaurant, had a pretty rubbish meal, and then when the waiter or waitress comes along and says, "How was everything with your meal, guys?" You go, "Oh, yeah, it's fine, it's great." And then we quietly seethe on the way home. Very, very British thing. And the fact is, that restaurant may have a manager and a chef that desperately want to make the place the best that they possibly can, but if all the customers refuse to admit that there are problems, how will they ever improve? And so, as far as I'm concerned, talking and making public these issues with McLaren are, well, key to helping the business survive. A lot of people said that the problems encountered previously were all McLaren Manchester issues. And sure, there is a lot that was certainly a McLaren Manchester issue, but above the door at Wilmslow, it does not say Crazy Bob's Discount House of Cars. It says McLaren Manchester. They are representatives of the brand. They are an extension of McLaren, and therefore it is McLaren's responsibility to make sure that they, act in the appropriate manner. I have with me today a little list of things I want to talk about, because I do want to try and make this video shorter than the last one. I mean, I really do love McLaren. I love the history. I love the ethos that Bruce McLaren had. Very, very similar chap to Colin Chapman. Incidentally, if I sound a little bit different to the previous video, I apologise. I wanted to make this a few days ago, but I haven't been very well. This strange-looking package arrived from the Wilmslow area, and ever since I've opened it, I just haven't felt right. And there were these 2 Russian guys earlier that wanted directions. They were trying to find the local church. Apparently, it's very interesting. So it's been a bit of a weird week. One comment that I want to address that came up a lot of the time is the fact that, these are rich people's problems. I don't care about these guys, they've got loads of money. They're still problems. The fact that you've bought something that's quite expensive doesn't somehow mean you don't deserve decent customer service. And if McLaren folded, there's thousands of people that will be without a job. Okay? There's thousands and thousands of people. I don't want them to fold. I want them to survive. Okay? Now, I actually bumped into Mike Flewitt not too long ago. We were on tour with James and his father John and a friend of theirs at the McLaren factory, and we literally pretty much bumped into Mike Flewitt, and he just kind of made his excuses and went off. And he didn't even spend 30 seconds saying hi, shaking hands or anything like that, and I kind of think that's a little bit disappointing for a CEO of a company who probably knew that because we were on a private little tour that we'd bought some cars. And it's just a bit odd. Contrast that with the experience I've had of Andy Palmer, which is Aston Martin's CEO. I put a tweet out because I really, really want to drive one of the new Astons. I got my own opinions on them, but I really want to sample them for myself. I tweeted him like a couple of days after Christmas, and he retweeted within 4 hours. And he's a very busy man, but he found the time to do that, and that I greatly appreciate. Other common questions asked: why did we even go to Manchester in the first place when it's very well known that that's a very, very long way away from where James and John live? Well, as mentioned in the previous video, and I do appreciate everyone that watched the last video to the end, because there's a lot of questions that could have been avoided if people did watch the entirety of the video. Why did we go to Manchester? Simple. The deal they had was better than anybody else's. End of. Nobody could even come close, and it was difficult finding cars in the spec that those guys wanted, and Manchester had that. Why didn't they buy a Ferrari? Well, simple. They both wanted McLarens. They both preferred the McLaren product. The way that the financing deals worked meant that the McLarens were considerably more affordable than the Ferraris. I know a lot of people look at it and go, anyone that's got £250,000 to drop on a car must be able to buy anything. Well, that's not how it works. Most of these cars, certainly in the UK, are bought on finance. That is a normal thing, and so it's not the same as just, spending £2,000 a month on something is not the same as dropping £250,000 on it, right? The document. The famous document. A lot of people saying, why did they even sign it? I would have just walked away. Well, simple fact really. As mentioned in the video, they were told if they didn't sign that, they could not have the cars. End of. We were told it's from Woking. No, we didn't believe them at the time anyway. However, we also know that signing that document does not sign away your consumer rights. You cannot sign away your consumer rights, and so we thought, the cars hadn't appeared at that point in time, we hadn't seen the cars, so we just thought, they'd already taken deposits and money had already been sorted out and all that stuff had been done, so we just thought, for crying out loud, this is just them being stupid, yeah. And we really genuinely hoped that actually there really wouldn't be that many problems with the cars. We weren't stupid, we knew that the McLaren ownership experience wasn't going to be entirely plain sailing, but we had hoped that, at least the first day would go without issue. The next question, why did they take the cars at all when we knew there were problems? Well, there weren't any real obvious problems with the 720. There was a little bit of bubbling in the PPF, which is not the same bubbling that I showed you in the last video, and even James said that he'd had the similar thing with one of his Porsches in the past, and that is, kind of normal for PPF, so there was no reason for the 720 not to be taken. We gave them 24 hours to fix the 570, and everything was going fine. They put us up in a hotel, they paid for some dinner, all sorts of stuff, so everything was going fine. It was annoying that we had problems, and it was very annoying that problems had happened so early on, but Manchester did seem to be quite keen to be proactive about it and sort these things. So it all seemed to be fairly decent. That document, I mentioned sort of vaguely in the previous video that it's been dealt with. What did I mean by that? I think McLaren Woking went to town with Manchester over that document. They've all been very coy, very, very hush-hush, but I know that it's dealt with. McLaren themselves, what did they think of the video? That's a big one. A lot of people said, what is McLaren's response to this? What is Manchester's response to this? Manchester have not made any attempts whatsoever to contact me since the video went live. We actually sent the video to Woking before it went out, before it went live. Whilst I won't share the specifics of the email to you, because it was a private email between two people, I have read it, and I can tell you that their response was basically, we're sorry you feel that way. A total, complete non-response. Very, very disappointing, really, from Woking. And since the video went half viral, they still haven't made any attempts to get in touch with me. So that's very unfortunate, because I would love to speak to them about it and try and sort these things out with them, but they have no interest, really. The big problem, really, that we had with Manchester was the fact that they never, ever said sorry. For all the things that happened, of all the balls ups, of all the mistakes, of all the things that were done improperly, they never just said, yeah, we're sorry, this shouldn't have happened. And it's things like, when you drive 230 miles overnight in a broken courtesy car to a dealer because your original car had broken, you have to pay for your own fuel, your own hotel, all that jazz. When you get to the dealer in the morning, the first thing they should be telling you is, oh my word, this is so embarrassing, this is awful, this doesn't normally happen, what can we do, this is terrible, we are so sorry. There shouldn't be enough that they could possibly do, rather than being aggressive and telling us, well, you're probably just not McLaren customers, we can't look after you, you keep breaking cars. That's not the way that you deal with people properly. There are loads of people that have got in touch with me, both publicly and privately, on the back of this video. There are people out there that have had good experiences with McLaren, and there are people out there that have had good experiences with the McLaren Manchester, and I do not disbelieve those people whatsoever. I am sure that it is perfectly possible to have a very good experience with the brand and even that dealer. However, enough people have got in touch with me to let me know that this is not a one-off thing either. That is very unfortunate. One gentleman in the United States even sent me some pictures that highlight his 570 ownership, and you'll see from those, which I've put on the screen now, that McLaren build quality seems to be very much a current and very much a global issue. McLaren are a young brand, I appreciate that, but they do need to learn. Things like the windscreens cracking, which happened on James's 570, well, that was happening on 12Cs, and it then happened on early 570s, and it was supposed to have stopped, but it just has never stopped. So people keep saying, oh, yeah, no, it's an issue, no, they fixed it, and then it keeps happening. So that's a problem. Big update on the 720. So, about the same day that I actually uploaded the video, the original video, before it was released, James got in touch with me and said there's a problem with his father's car. There had been a failure of the ESC system, so the traction control was totally nixed. It was not working whatsoever, and as you can probably imagine, a 720 horsepower rear-wheel drive mid-engine supercar in December with no traction control, no fun at all. We got in touch with McLaren, and then McLaren Bristol, who arranged for the car to be trailered all the way over there, and Bristol is the opposite side of the country to us. As mentioned at the end of the last video, we decided that going forward we were going to be dealing with Bristol. Now, I must take pains to say that Bristol have been excellent. In fact, every single bit of damage that Manchester have done to the brand, Bristol are trying their hardest to undo and succeeding. The guys down there, Luke and Nick and all the people we've spoken with, they have been absolutely fantastic. Really nice, really knowledgeable, nothing is too much trouble. Excellent guys, can thoroughly recommend them. And equally, I've heard very good things about McLaren Glasgow, McLaren Leeds, Birmingham. I've had decent dealings with Hatfield myself. There are good dealers out there, but as pointed out in the previous video, there aren't enough dealers out there that good ones, the bad ones rather, should be allowed to exist. So, what happened with the 720? Well, the 720 went in, and they came back to us and said, oh, we suspect that the reason that the car's traction control threw you a warning is because only half of your software was updated. And it was on, the car has about 20 different computers controlling all sorts of stuff, down to the individual door windows. That's the one. And they weren't all on the same software version. This is after the car, about 3 weeks earlier, having been to Manchester and having been given a software update that should have cured a load of problems. And evidently, when Manchester had the car, they did not update it properly. I didn't mention McLaren Manchester service at all in the previous video, but they were absolutely awful even before all this stuff. And when I get onto some of this next stuff, I think I might shock a few people. Anyway, they said, yeah, we can probably sort this. We can get the car all onto the latest software version. Oh, by the way, your gearbox is leaking, and all four corners of your suspension need replacing because they aren't working properly. Oh, interesting. The gearbox we suspect has been leaking for some time. Now, the suspension, when that failed, I don't know, because I drove the car myself about 2 months ago and it was working fine, and now it isn't. So that's all being sorted, that's all being done. They've got the parts in pretty quickly. Christmas obviously got in the way a little bit, but they are dealing with that and doing a pretty good job of it. The gearbox has probably been leaking for a while, so it kind of shocked us that Manchester didn't notice it. It also annoyed us that they had obviously not done the software update properly. And then I had a few questions for them, which I think explain quite a few bits of the story, including the issues I have with the fabled NOx sensor. Okay, so the software version that's on the car now is 5.4. The version Manchester said that they'd updated it to was 4.9. Now, in my eyes, there are probably several versions between 4.9 and 5.4. That's how software usually works. And so I was kind of wondering, well, hang on a minute, when did this latest software come out? Because if Manchester had the car only 3 weeks ago, shouldn't it already be on the latest software? And more to the point, how old is the software that was on the car before? Because surely part of the PDI process should be updating the car to the latest software anyway. We then found out that the latest software for the car was released in July, and the car was collected in October, so there was absolutely no reason for the car not to have been on the latest software anyway. This then raises the million-dollar question. When was that car built? John's 720 was built in October last year. That car sat in stock for the best part of an entire year before being sold. And I think that accounts for a hell of a lot. Allow me to explain. The knock sensors, you may recall in the last video I said, was something that failed. If you don't know what a knock sensor is, it's basically a part of the car's engine that detects when the engine is misfiring. It basically exists to let the car, get its maximum performance out of high quality fuels, but also stop it from damaging itself if you put some rubbish in. This is particularly useful in the USA, where you can put basically sort of filthy dishwater in from the pumps. Now, loads of people seem to think I've just made that up. This is just complete fabrication. I've checked with several dealers. It is not a fabrication. It does happen. But it's only something that goes wrong with the cars when they are left outside in the rain, going nowhere for extended periods. And by extended periods, I suspect we mean months. Like actual months. Not it was outside for a couple of weeks, and all the people that own the cars and say, well, I've never had my knock sensor fail. Well, you probably haven't, because you probably used the car or had it under a cover, because McLaren recommend having it under a cover when it's outside. But the dealers don't have them under cover. The dealers just have them outside in a car park, sitting there going nowhere until someone buys them. And this, I think, really is the root of McLaren's issues, okay? Because they have created for themselves this cycle. So the cars have this reputation for being, well, a bit fragile, for breaking easily, okay? Because they have this reputation for breaking easily, people don't want to buy them. So cars sit in stock for ages, and these cars are actually engineered exceedingly well, and they'll take a hell of a lot of abuse. But the one thing they will not take is being sat around for ages. That's just not good for any car, particularly a highly strung sports car. And most of the problems that we've encountered with John's car, the suspension, the gearbox, are related to seals that have failed. Seals will fail if there's no fluid lubricating them, and if they're just sat there doing nothing. That's how these things fail. Anyone that's had any sort of classic car sitting for any period of time will know that that's probably far more damaging than driving the wheels off the damn thing. These cars sit around, they sit around for longer and longer and longer, which means that they're more likely to break when people buy them, which means that when they do break, people go, oh, those McLarens, they aren't very good, which means the prices go down, which means that they depreciate harder, which means people looking at them thinking of buying one go, hang on a minute, that thing's depreciating like nobody's business. I'm not sure I want to buy one of those, which means they sit in the dealership for even longer, and they sit there for so long, it gets to the point where the dealer will basically do anything to sell them, by which time the car's ancient. McLaren are probably not making any money on the car anymore by the time they sold it, because the two cars they sold to James's father probably had the best part of £100,000 discount across them. That's not a good thing, okay? The fact the cars depreciate harder means that they are going to be more expensive eventually to finance, unless they've knocked loads and loads of money out of them, and then when they do get bought, because they've sat so long, they'll then break, and the cycle continues. This has to stop. How do you fix this? Very, very easy. Very, very easy, okay? Stop building cars for stock. McLaren have this habit. Every single McLaren dealer that I have spoken to has said McLaren will just send us piles and piles of cars that we have not asked for. McLaren, you need to stop it. Ferrari do not build cars for stock. Porsche do not build cars for stock. I do not accept the excuse that you don't want customers waiting for 2 or 3 months. Crikey, people wait years for a Ferrari. I've known people to wait the best part of a year for a Focus RS. A couple of months for a £250,000 supercar is nothing, okay? Spend more time in the factory. Do better quality control. Make every single car that comes out of your factory gates as good as it can possibly be. And when you do that, people will start taking you seriously, and then people will love the cars. They'll want to hold on to them. They'll be worth more money. More people will want to buy them. It gets better and better and better and better and better. Okay? Some improvements are already being made. I've seen advertisements saying that McLaren used cars now come with a 24-month warranty. Oddly, I also saw on the same website on the same day an advert saying that McLaren used cars come with a 12-month warranty. So communication is still clearly very much an issue at that company. And I don't think the company created a very good relationship with many of their dealers early on either. A lot of people I know that have dealt with the brand in the past have said how very, very difficult they are to deal with, okay? You are ridiculously inconsistent, McLaren. You need to sort it. Build the cars better. Standardize your procedure, okay? Get a heritage scheme in, okay? Slash the prices of your warranties for your older cars. Make them more desirable. Bring out less models, okay? You're bringing out cars every single new week and, do less silly stuff, okay? The last few cars that McLaren have announced have been the Senna, the Speedtail, the Elva, the 620R. With the exception of the 620R, those are all sort of, well, the Senna's the cheap one at like £750,000. Then you've got the Elva at 1.4 and the Speedtail's even more. These are obscenely expensive toys for billionaires, basically. The average McLaren customer will never, ever be in a position to buy one of those, and yet those are the customers that McLaren seem to be fawning over and they can't do enough for. Well, McLaren, they're not the customers making up the majority of your sales. Maybe they look good on paper, because I'm pretty sure building an Elva does not cost you anywhere near the £1.4 million that you charge for it, and so you're probably making a nice healthy profit off them. And releasing this number of special edition models so soon after one another does worry me, because it does look like a company that is trying to raise a lot of cash in a very short period of time, and that's a concern. I think you need to spend more time looking after your own customers and indeed your staff. There is a website in the UK called Glassdoor. On it, people review what a company is like to interview for and to work for. You go on there and you'll see that McLaren's reviews are pretty damning. People there don't even have their own desk. They're hot desking. So people get to the company and they have to wander around for an hour to find a desk. Many, many reports of people saying that the engineering team there is world class, but the people managing them are idiots. They don't know what they're doing. There's a lack of direction from above, and they all seem a little bit lost. McLaren are currently still in something of a honeymoon period, because they're still a new, exciting, innovative brand. And they're probably relying on the fact that their cars, when they're working, do perform absolutely brilliantly, and they do drive fantastically. A lot of people wonder why my friend and his father wanted to keep their cars at all, because they love them. Simple as that. They absolutely love them to pieces. But McLaren's approach at the minute really worries me, because I've seen it before. So much about McLaren is eerily reminiscent of Lotus. Down to the fact that a few years ago, Lotus, as they often were in deep, deep trouble. So they got a new CEO in, and his idea was to try and make the place look as good as it possibly could. The way he did that was by building loads and loads of cars. He was building loads and loads of cars, not because people wanted to buy them, but because if he built one and handed it to a dealer, he'd claim that as a sale. And claiming that as a sale would temporarily make the books look pretty good. What he actually did was damage the brand, because if you've got 10 limited edition cars all sat in a dealer for 6 months not going anywhere, I don't think you're going to be able to convince anyone to part with full price for them. That's just how it was. And McLaren seem to be wandering down that same path, and perhaps McLaren are arrogant enough to think they're big enough to not fail, but they can. They really, really can, because you start to get the kind of reputation that Lotus has, and you're already a long way there, you're going to find your customers are all going to disappear off. And I'm not going to, for a second, pretend that Ferrari, Lamborghini, all these people don't have problems with their cars. Of course they do. I mean, Porsche in particular are terrible at the moment. But they do seem to sort things out generally. Certainly the more prestige marques like Ferrari, they do look after their customers. And more to the point, if they have a rogue dealership, they will certainly deal with that as well. I suspect the reason that nothing has happened as of yet at Manchester is because Manchester probably makes some money. And McLaren are so desperate for it that basically the sales guy at Manchester could be Beelzebub, but as long as they were getting some cash back to Woking, they probably couldn't care. And I think that's a very short-sighted approach and very, very sad, because ultimately I want McLaren to survive. I want McLaren to do better. I think the next version of the 570 and the 720 should be basically the same thing. A few styling tweaks, give another 10 horsepower, but build them better. I mean, look at Ferrari, crying out loud. You get 7 years free servicing with a Ferrari. 7 years! And they're Ferrari. They probably could be really difficult if they wanted to be, and people are just going to buy them anyway because, well, they're a Ferrari. McLaren are not there yet. Mr. Fluid, you say you want to provide the best ownership experience in the world. Well, right now, my friend and his father have spent a fair amount of money for, I think most people would agree, about 400 grand is quite a bit of cash, and they're not getting it. And I would love to hear from you and tell me that not only is this a huge, massive anomaly, but I want to know what you're actually going to do to fix it. Because, to be perfectly honest, I don't think you care. I really don't think you care. And I desperately want to be proven wrong on that. Okay? That's my message to you. And to everybody that's watched the previous video and this one, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I've tried, I can see the counter there. I have managed to make this one a little bit shorter. I hope I've answered some of the key questions from that video. And the main thing I want people to take back is the fact that I really do want McLaren to get better. But as far as I'm concerned, the first step in improving that business is acknowledging the problems that they do have, because they definitely have them. You may have had a good experience with your car, and if so, I am very happy for you. Loads of people told me they've had good experiences. I know people with McLarens that have had a good experience, but I also know far too many that haven't. Let's fix this, guys. Let's create a company that everybody can be really proud of, and I will be the first person to eat my own words and say how much you've improved. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.